Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Welcome back to Worth Guitars. Today I'm going to figure out where this bridge goes, get it placed so that I can tape off underneath it, and get some shellac on this top. We'll get this bridge in here where I think it should be, and I've got it pretty much placed in here, and I'll tell you how I came to that conclusion of where I think it should be, where I know it should be. There's a couple different ways I do this, a couple different ways you can do this. You can make it as easy or as complex as you would like. But this bridge needs to be in the right place for it to intonate properly. When you get your saddle in there, you can really fine-tune the intonation of it by adjusting the angle and the distance away from the nut to where it breaks across the top of the saddle to get it tuned in just correct, perfectly. As perfect as you can make it. So that's where we're at today. So as you can see, I have this fixture that I bought from, I believe it was Allied Lutherie a long time ago. And what it does is fits on the neck and butts up to the nut right here, and it has a straight line that runs right down the center of it, and it has this little saddle that runs up and down that you can use to help you make sure that bridge doesn't move when you're putting it in position. It doesn't really work too well for placing exactly where the bridge goes because this is straight and the bridge is on an angle. But it gets you real close. So you could set it for, say, 25.5-inch scale. This is what I have right here, a 25.5-inch scale guitar. And then if you wanted to, if you had the saddle in your bridge, I'm using a thicker piece of material for my saddle so I can have enough room to intonate it properly. Get the saddle in there. If you wanted to, you could just butt it right up to that at 25.5, but it's going to be at an angle, so you're going to need to straighten it back out. That is one way to do it, right to the edge of your saddle. But I don't want my intonation point to be right at the edge of the saddle. I want it to be about a 1/16 of an inch back, so I'm not leaving a razor edge right there that's just going to crack and break off. This is a bone saddle. It's brittle, so you have to leave enough material on this side to break that edge a little, to where there's enough material there when the string comes across it, it has a little strength left to it, you know? So what I did instead was I used this method. We'll come back to this. It's a little confusing to try to explain, but we'll come back to it. I made this tool a while back, and I basically just copied it from one I saw on StewMat. Essentially, it's just a rod with two pieces of rosewood, and I put a threaded insert in there, not a threaded insert, but an Allen screw down through the rosewood. I threaded the rosewood so that it would thread down in there and clamp down on the end of this rod right here. And the same thing here. On this piece, you can see I have the shape of a fret, the opposite shape of a fret in the back of it. And what that does is allow me to set it on top of the fret like that and hold it in place, and it stays there. Right? So the 12th fret is the equal distance between the nut and the intonation point on your guitar at 25.5 inches. So to get that set properly, all I do is just take this, set it on here on the 12th fret, line it up, that point up with the nut right there, and that's set. This point here. Right there. These two things are just Allen keys or Allen wrenches that I sharpened and stuck through the rosewood. You see that? You could make yourself one of these. I could do up a little set of plans. Show you how to make one if you want. But it works pretty good. 12th fret, I'm going to put this point right at the edge of the nut right there. That point. Then I'm going to turn this around and put it right here. That, I want to sit back. I want that point to be right about there on my saddle. That line on my saddle right there. Because I want to leave that much material on the other side of the intonation point when I file the bevel on this saddle where the string comes across. Right? So that right there is my 25.5 inch intonation point. Does any of that make any sense, guys? If not, let me know. Okay, so I have already found the center line. By the way, this thing here is perfect for making sure you have the center on your guitar, because that center line right there is determined after you clamp this down on here and here. Hold it in place. Clamp that there. That holds this fixture in the center of the guitar. And you can see exactly where your center line goes down through your guitar right here. Now I know that my center line is just slightly off the center of my top. The joint, the center joint on my top is slightly off center. But I know that this line is the center of the neck, and that's really the important thing I need to worry about. And I can see how far off it is, and it's about 1/64 of an inch off of my center line. So that's the center of my bridge right there. This piece of tape is where I determined the edge of the bridge to be. And I put that center line on this piece of tape right here, so I can set this here, just like that. And when I put this on here, I can see that that point lines exactly on that saddle where I want it to be. All right? And that's hard for you to see because you're in a weird spot. So hold on and let me move you over. On the 12th fret, move this over some right here where it sits flat. You see where the point of that Allen wrench is sitting that I sharpened? My pointer right there? Right exactly on that line where I want it to be. Okay, that's exactly 25.5 inches, right there at the first string. Okay? And any slight adjustment I need to make, I can make in the saddle. Another way to determine that is just by simply measuring it from the nut over to the first string. As you can see, that's 25.5 inches. All right? Can you see that? Okay. So that's how I determine where I want my bridge to be. And any slight changes in intonation I can make in this saddle. That's why I use a thicker piece like this. Right there, see? All right. Score the wood first. Then I want to drill very slowly because I don't want to just go jamming it down in there and punching through and breaking out underneath. Right? Matter of fact, I'm going to try to hold a block of wood right underneath there where I'm at. I try to hold a block of wood right underneath here so that when I come through it doesn't break off. You know, break the wood down underneath there. You understand what I mean? All right, hold on, I'm gonna grab a little scrap of wood. I'll be right back. Okay, now I can put this underneath here. And I can feel it right up against the brace there that I have. And I know right there is where that hole's going to come through. I'm just going to drill nice and slow until I feel it hit that piece of wood. There you go, right there. I can feel it pushing against it. That means I'm through. That way I get a nice clean hole down through there. Yeah, that's good. It didn't break out. You went right through that piece of maple bracing underneath there. There's an 1/8 of an inch thick piece of maple bracing right inside here where the braces come together to reinforce this area where the bridge glues down. Now we'll do that again. And we got those holes drilled. Go backwards first. Score that wood real well. See how nice and clean that hole is? There's no fuzz around it. I didn't yank a piece of grain up with it. Alright, we're just going to get right back in that hole there. Carefully drill that hole. Alright. Just like that. Okay, now we know that's where the bridge goes. I can put this back on here like this. That goes right in that hole. That goes right in that hole. And that has almost no play in it at all. So we know that's going to go really, really accurately back to where we want it to be. Our center line is still lined up. We're right on the edge of that blue tape. That blue tape is my line across, my 90-degree line across my center line. Right? Right on it. There's just the tiniest little bit of play in there, and that's okay. Because when we clamp it down, we'll make sure it's held nice and firm. Okay, now the bridge is in place. So now what we can do is this. We can take this piece back up very carefully. You don't want to pull up any grain. Right? Bridge is in place. So now what we need to do is put some tape here. Put this back down and very carefully cut along there. Pull this back up. Then that's taped off where the bridge goes. That allows us to put finish on this. There's already tape under here. I'll show you when I take this off. There's already tape under the fretboard. So we can finish the whole top. And when we get ready to put the guitar back together, there will not be any finish under where the bridge gets glued down. Right? So we'll put a few pieces of tape across here, and away we go. Maybe enough. Poke the hole again. Let's see if that's enough to cover it. That is enough to cover it. That's good. Right there. Alright? I'm going to put this back down. Back in place. A little bit of tape in the hole now. Doesn't go in quite as easily. There we go. I got lucky, found these two screws that are exactly the size I need. I used to have two really nice pieces of rivets that were perfect size hole, and they were flat across the top. You go back to the hardware store. Get some more of those. Alright. Now we can cut that very carefully with a nice sharp X-Acto blade. And right along this edge right here. We'll put a new blade in just to be safe. Get a good clean cut. These are relatively cheap blades. There's no sense in using a dull blade. Always use a sharp blade when you can. Nice sharp blade in there. Now we can make this cut. Got you over a little closer so you can see. I'm just cutting at an angle back up underneath this bridge here. Trying to cut as tight to the bridge as I possibly can. With this nice sharp blade. Now, if that did right, that should just come right up, just like that. Just like that. That's why you use a sharp blade. That. Cut a little deeper right here. There we go. Wasn't pushing quite hard enough. Not trying to push so hard that I cut through the top. Okay, that came out nice and clean. Just like that. That's exactly what we wanted to do. Alright, now, when we take this back up, okay, we'll leave that there for the rest of the time we're doing the finish work on this guitar. We'll spray over top of it. When we get ready to take it up, we'll very carefully cut the finish right along that edge right there, and then peel that back off, and we'll have a perfectly clean place to glue the bridge back down. There will be no finish there. Like I say, I've already done this under the neck. Okay, so that's where we're at. I'm going to take this and put it somewhere safe until we're ready for it again. That's our little bridge kit. Okay, we move you back out of the way. This is where we're at. We've got that where we want it to be. That's perfect. Now I can take this neck off and we can get some shellac on this top, which is what we want to do. So let's get the neck off. I got to get in there and undo these neck bolts. And this is a little tricky because you got to have a bit of a contortionist thing going on. And once you get it started, it comes pretty well. All right, we got that one. Get that off. This one up here that's closer to the top of the soundboard is a little harder to reach because there's a piece of bracing that goes across there, and it's a little bit in the way. There we go, right there. That's it. Get your arm in there at a weird angle. There we go. All right, now that'll come off. Here we go. Now, as you can see, I already have the tape on the face underneath. One of the little bolts fell out. One of these little bolts fell out here. That's all right. Get back in there. Okay, so we can set this aside. All right, now we can take this and put a nice clean coat of shellac on here, and I think that'll be it for the day. I just want to make sure that's nice and clean right there. Just going to take some 400 grit, put it on the pad, just to make sure I get all of the oil or whatever it's on my hands off of here. I've already done most of the sanding for it. I just want to clean it up just a bit. All right, that looks good. Pretty. Piece of Sitka spruce. I had a little bit of trouble with it over the winter. My shop dried out real bad. We had a really super cold spell come through. I got a little crack in it, which was a bummer, but it is what it is, so they say. Okay, now, let me get the shellac out and we'll get a coat on here. I'll be right back. I'm going to use this amber shellac. Just a nice gold color on the top. Get it on there first, and then I'll come back and smooth out the brush strokes, get the little air bubbles out. This will give us a nice aged look to the top. A little bit of color. And we're going to sand this down flat again after it dries well. Again, this is only here to protect the top now at this point. This is not the final coat. This is just a sealer. Go. Stuff dries very quickly. Just trying to make sure it's spread out evenly here. Dried real fast over here. Real fast. Okay, that's a good coat on there. Nice coat of amber shellac. A lot of that's going to get sanded off. That's really just temporary coat. So I think I'm going to do a tobacco sunburst on this. A little bit of tobacco sunburst around the outside edges. I think that would be cool looking. Let that dry real well. Coat of amber shellac on there to protect the top. That's where we're at. I don't think I like that. I think I'm going to sand most of that back off. The shellac is kind of old, I think. That's a little bit too ambery looking. But that's where we are, guys. And I'm going to stop on this video for today. And we'll come back to it. Let that dry, see how it looks. I think it's going to be okay. And it's almost dry already. All right, that's it. Stop messing with it. Okay, that's all I'm gonna do today. Okay guys, sorry for the audio problem. Mic turned out on me, didn't show up today. What are you gonna do, right? I hope everybody has a good life out there. I hope everything's going well for you. Be good to each other, okay? Be kind to each other. And we'll see you next time. Next time we'll do some grain filling we're on the way to getting this baby done. Okay, thanks. Peace. Happy Father's Day tomorrow. If you're watching this on Saturday,